Hey, what's going on? Good morning. Well, it's morning here. It's morning while I'm recording this. Probably not while you're watching it. Who knows? Anyways, the volcano here is out today. It's beautiful and a beautiful sunrise. Yesterday, I tried to record this video, but the microphone wasn't engaged, so the audio sucked, and I didn't get didn't get to record it. But it's working now. Something else I found out though is that when I'm recording these personal videos and I'm not doing like a podcast with somebody, like I'm doing like a Skype with somebody or a Zoom, I don't have to have these on. It doesn't make any difference. So I'm going to stop wearing these. Um, and yeah, so that's something I learned. I think I've made a bunch of videos and had these headphones in. But, anyways, a little more comfortable without them on actually. And I don't have to hear myself. But I was talking about yesterday in the video that I made self confidence and this odd kind of duality of me working on confidence, and people who know me would be like, "What? You're not confident?" It's not. I was trying to decipher this because it's a weird paradigm. I am confident in areas of where I have competence, and that is a lot of areas of when I was working, when I was a soldier, when I was an athlete, um, socially, in many different aspects of my life. I'm confident, and I'm not rattled, and I'm not easily thrown off. But at a core level, there was this insecurity, this lack of confidence in who I was as a person. And so, in doing some of this work, found that it comes from like inner child stuff. It comes from when I was younger, and some of the core beliefs that you develop between the age of when you were born and 5 years old. So, and even after. Um, but I want to preface this by saying that my relationship with my mom, my stepdad, my dad is really good right now. And a lot of the things that I talk about weren't done maliciously. There were things that happened and circumstances and lack of understanding and knowing. So when I talk about these things, it's not in a disparaging manner, and it's not to um, like blame anybody or get that out. I am healed from this, and I'm sharing it so that you understand that some of these little nuanced things might still cause blocks in your future, even though they weren't maybe what you would consider. They're not like abuse or anything like that. So, um, I guess I'll give you a little bit of the story of my life. When I was born in Houston, Texas. My dad was doing construction work for a hurricane at the time, and he was alcoholic and drug addict at the time. And so, very unreliable. Within the first 6 weeks, I had to have surgery. I was like malnourished. I couldn't hold food down, and I was vomiting and very skinny. Um, Still very skinny, but uh, I had to have surgery at like 6 weeks old, and I think my dad just dropped us off at the hospital, and my mom was, a mess trying to deal with that and had dysregulated nervous system dealing with that type of a partner with a newborn baby and not knowing why they don't have money and all that stuff. So at 6 months, he moves home back to Michigan with me, and eventually my dad gets her to take him back. So she left, and then he gets her to take her back, and then they're together. They have my sister, and they're together until I'm 4 years old. But we're living at different grandma's houses, and he's still drinking and doing drugs and stuff, and inconsistent. My mom and him are arguing a lot, and at that time, this is when I started. I also noticed something about dissociation and mind-body connection. But this is where I started with dissociation, is when they were arguing, and I would hide in like the curtains. You'd look over at the curtains, and you see my little feet under there. I was just wrapped up in the curtain, playing with like my He-Man or something like that, trying to like dissociate from from the environment. So that was when I was young, and then different grandmas and different people all trying to soothe and um, distract me, and I could play grandmas against mom or dad against grandmas or whatever. I knew how to manipulate that environment at a very young age. So moving from there, at 4, my parents divorced, and we ended up, my mom, my sister, and I living in a pretty bad area, inner city of Pontiac, and it wasn't the greatest area. House was broken into. The car caught a stray bullet um, through the trunk, and we moved a lot between the age of 4 and 8, and sometime in there, my dad had kind of fully disappeared out of my life for a couple of years, for like 2 or 3 years, and I had difficulty with that. And I'd still see my grandmas, like his mom, and I'm like, why don't you get, like in my understanding as a kid, like you better get your kid under control. Why can't you make them show up for Christmas or whatever? So I had abandonment stuff as well, and then moved around a lot. So it was always kind of adapting to the new school, the new environment, the new kid, and so inauthenticity and trying to, and at that age, that's your survival. If you're not liked by the group, by the school, like you're an outcast. It can it can feel like life or death at that age. So very insecure with who I was as a person and more adapting to who I thought everybody wanted me to be. We talked about that in the authenticity video. But moving from that, about 8 years old, my stepdad came into my life, and we moved to Lake Orion, where we stayed for like 7 or 8 years. And I played sports there, and kind of life started to normalize out. But my mom and stepdad still argued quite a bit, and my stepdad was a police officer at the time and dealt with a lot of smart ass kids and that were in trouble. And I was a smart ass, and even though I wasn't in that level of trouble, it just kind of triggered him and reminded him of that. So he got along with my sister a lot better, I guess, than me. We were just different. He liked outdoors more, and I was more into sports, and I was more sarcastic, where he was more dry sense of humor. So we butted heads, and as I was dealing with my dad leaving me and him coming into the picture, so it just created a dynamic that wasn't the greatest. And that continued up until I was 17, and then I went to Northern Michigan University for a little bit, for like a semester, until I drank too much and didn't didn't do well. So I came back, um, worked for General Motors, and then ended up going to Iraq in 2005 and going through that stuff. So when I came out of that, I would start to try to address the feeling of the lack of confidence with more competence, with trying to, you know, be the best at work, be the best at everything I do. Um, this perfectionism type thing, and a lot of the external, trying to hit external check marks to validate that should make me confident. And it situationally, like I said, made me confident in those arenas, but it didn't make me confident in who I am as a person. So, like, even in relationships, with women, um, and anytime I felt like triggered of abandonment or not worthy, just even around people in general, I didn't feel like worthy as an adult. Like I don't know. There's a lot of it insecurity, even though I had these accomplishments on the outside, and in the core and the internal, there was a feeling of lack, and I kept trying to fill that with more competence, more accomplishments. It just doesn't work. So by going back and doing inner child meditations and like reparenting my younger self and and talking to them and guided meditations and stuff like that, it's been helpful to bringing about more self-confidence and like an internal core self-confidence, which allows me to be more authentic, which has really changed my life. A lot of self-love and, you know, happier, more gratitude, instead of this like self-hatred that I've experienced before. So there's a hair here that's been bothering me. But I didn't really want to make this video, so that's how I know I needed to make this video. It's uncomfortable, sharing all this stuff. But it definitely, also, yeah, the dissociation part that I was talking about earlier. So that further dissociation with Iraq. So I went to Iraq, and then that furthered like dissociation, dissociating from feelings, so that I could approach. They're already disarmed bombs, but I still had to approach them and put my own C4 on it and blow them up. And I've been sniped at doing that and different things. So you have to repress a lot of your emotions to do that, dissociate. And in doing so, I remember being with counselors, EMDR, and she's trying to, do you feel that anywhere in your body? And she asked me that. Something I don't feel it ever, never felt it. So I mess with people. She didn't know I was messing with her, but I told my mom about it. I used to tell her I'd feel it in my big toe, because I'd get sick of her asking, and so I'd finally feel it in my big toe. But I didn't really feel it anywhere. I was so disassociated, disconnected from that I don't. My body tries to communicate with me sometimes. There's a book, The Body Keeps the Score, and your body sends more signals to your brain than your brain sends to your body. So I'm not understanding. I don't know what anything feels like. Now that I've done breath work, that helps a lot. Breath work, some of the somatic mind body stuff, that I've read has helped. But I'm able to understand that anger for me starts in my chest, and it's like a tingly heat, and it raises up into my head. And if it gets to the top of my head, that's the problem. um, I've noticed, sadness sometimes in my throat, and feeling like a suffocating almost. Uh, Depression is like tenseness in my shoulders here. Anxiety is like a clenching in my jaw that I feel. So I'm able to more identify these emotions with feelings now. But before I was clueless, and it's because of the amount of time that I've dissociated. So that was something that I've recently learned. I think that's why I don't like talking about this stuff. It's because I'm just learning it, so it's like still fresh, and I'm like, it's crazy. But it's really helped me to go back and do a lot of this, inner child work, working on the internal stuff, because I've tried to work on my confidence externally, and that can build little silos of confidence. Like, I'm confident in at work, I'm confident on the basketball court, I'm confident, in this capacity. But if you strip all that away from me, I'm a scared little kid. And I don't know. It's a weird thing I thought about. I had a little Chihuahua named Stella. She's with my ex Rachel now, but she was my. She had other big bad dogs in the house, and she ran the ship. Though she was in charge. It was like, what? How does this happen? And inside of me, I have these versions. I have a soldier Cole. I have I have all these these badass versions of myself. And sometimes this little scared child runs the show, and it happens. And so I've had to go back, and I've had to reassure this scared little child that everything's good, and that we, um, give him the things that he needed at that time, and explain somewhat the situation. Because it's weird when you know it logically, like consciously. I understand that when I was a child, that my dad had problems, and that those were his problems, and that had nothing to do with me. But the subconscious imprint of how that child thought about that and how that child felt is different. the child has like a narcissistic viewpoint of the world. Everything's about them. And at that point, when that happened, it felt like I was unlovable and that I was unworthy of my dad being around. So that's how my subconscious associates with it. My conscious understands that's not the case, but my subconscious associates with it. And in your life, like 95% of the actions you take are subconscious. The decisions you make, they're subconscious. Blinking, breathing, all this stuff is subconscious. And so when your subconscious mind, it doesn't matter what your conscious mind like believes or thinks, you have to, that's why the positive affirmations and stuff, you're reprogramming your subconscious mind. And same with this meditation and going back and addressing that inner child who feels that way and, directly um, teaching him or talking to him, loving him, just hugging him. You don't even have to logically tell them the situation. You just have to um, hear them, understand how they felt. It doesn't mean that you have to feel that way now, but you have to understand how that felt as that little child, and you have to acknowledge it and accept and give love for that because it's hard. It reminds me, I've somebody said this in a podcast I was listening to. It's like your inner child is knocking at the door and asking for help, and you're telling it to go away because it's uncomfortable. And that's what I've done with my emotions when they come up for a long time. It's like, go away. I don't have time for you. You know what I mean? I'm working, like, busy. No, there's no time to deal with this. What are you doing? Go back where you came from. So I think digging into the stuff that I never gave credence to, I never thought emotions were powerful, positive thinking, whatever. Maybe it'll make you feel better temporarily, but it's not going to do anything. But no, it can change your physiology, it can change your brain. It literally, the way that you think and the way that you talk to yourself manifests reality, and like it's crazy. So hopefully that helps somebody. Maybe you're super successful in many areas in your life, but you find yourself with a lot of talent, but you self-sabotage a lot. It could be because the inner child inside of you doesn't want you to be successful. There's a lot of blocks, you know what I mean? Like coming with success could be the belief of you're selling out. It could be the belief of like, well, if you're successful, then you're selling out, or if you're successful, then you're gonna have to be responsible. Whatever. There's all these connotations. So you might consciously want success, but then subconsciously there's all these beliefs around what success entails, and that's why you self-sabotage and block. And sometimes your nervous system doesn't feel comfortable, calm, and in peace. It's not used to it. So when you get that, you run from it. And when you find chaos, you're like, yeah, that's what I'm used to. And so being aware, I think, is one of the major stepping stones to getting started. But with awareness, it doesn't change anything. Just because it doesn't do anything. As G.I. Joe, I think I said this in the book, knowing is half the battle, and now you know. Well, it's only half the battle because doing is the other half. It takes work, man. I talked about this morning. Like, if you stop doing the work, man, it'll come back real quick too. So I've I'm not perfect. I fall off. I have bad times. I have rough patches, and I continuously have to do the work, and I'm still talking about it because I think it's better coming from me fresh and raw than it is later after I figured it out and then I talk about it. I'm going to have a different perspective. So I'm talking about it to you now, fresh out the mouth after I learned it the other day. And it's uncomfortable and it sucks. So bear with me. But I love you guys. And honestly, um, keep doing your best. That's all you can do. And give yourself forgiveness and grace. Don't be so hard on yourself. A good rule is to, when you're monitoring your self-talk, is to ask yourself, would you say that to somebody else? And if the answer is no, then don't fucking say it to yourself. Okay?